talk. And it appears that Tom Cruise's expletive-ridden rant about COVID guidelines being broken on the set of his latest Mission Impossible film has firmly divided opinion. The Hollywood star's vocal attack on two workers who were reportedly not sticking to the social distancing rules has garnered some support on social media. We can't play you the clip because of a rights issue, but also because the secretly recorded clip goes on for more than 2 minutes and includes a lot of swearing. So it got us thinking, is it ever okay to be rude to someone who isn't following the coronavirus rules? Let's have a chat with Jillian Merchant, who's a solicitor who works in discrimination at Thompson's, and also a PR consultant, Colin Kelly. Morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Morning.
You must have all had moments where you'd like to be a bit more plain speaking to some of your colleagues. But is it ever okay to have a go at anyone, Jillian?
I think there's no difficulty with managers picking up on bad behaviour or people not following the rules. I think that that's necessary, and I think actually, conversely, in quite a lot of workplaces, people don't, take decisions that they need to take. However, there's a way to do it, and I don't think the way that Tom Cruise conducted himself was appropriate. I think anyone in a workplace needs to be treated with dignity and respect, and the pretty spectacular display of anger and emotion, I'd probably go as far as saying loss of control on Tom Cruise's part, was pretty unacceptable, I would say.
Colin?
Well, I think, reputations are easy to gain and difficult to lose. And I think most people already see Tom Cruise as an emotional guy, an intense guy. I think he says it in his rant. He actually says we are the gold standard. He takes a lot of responsibility, puts pressure on himself, and expects very high standards of everyone around him. He's a guest in someone else's country. And I think most people will be on the side of Tom Cruise, and that they see even someone as privileged as he is taking these COVID restrictions every bit as seriously as all the rest of us.
The thing is, though, there is being stressed, there is wanting to be the gold standard, and then there's letting fly for over 2 minutes in an expletive-ridden rant that there, quite frankly, aren't enough stars on a keyboard to cover the amount of swearing that was in it. And I can't imagine anybody in any workplace putting up with that sort of nonsense, Colin.
Well, it's certainly not best practice. It's not great leadership either. And if I was advising him, it sounds like he's maybe taking on a bit too much. His emotions perhaps getting the better of him. Should someone like him even be having this conversation? Should he maybe not be using an intermediary, someone who can convey some of what he's saying, but maybe take some of the sting out of it? My concern for Tom Cruise is that, if you dish it out, you've got to take it. So he has to now be purer than pure. He's going to be under intense scrutiny, and he can't afford any slip-ups. But again, the intensity around COVID, the Hollywood and movie production, and all the issues that's had over the last couple of years, this sends a signal. If you're working on a Tom Cruise film, it's probably the safest working environment in the industry.
Jillian, has he actually broken any rules here?
I mean, probably not. It's probably quite an unknown thing that there isn't really any law that you can where you can bring claims or anything against bullying, unless it's on the grounds of what we would call protected characteristic, which would be like sex or race or marital status.
Would you class it as bullying, him swearing at people?
I don't think a one-off would be likely to be classed as bullying, but I think if it was a course of conduct over a period of time, then I think that perhaps would be considered to be bullying, particularly if it was picking on particular individuals. But
I should say at this point, the Sun have picked up on the story again and said that apparently there has been a second rant after their story ran yesterday, because once news of this got out, because they recorded it and they put it out there, Mr. Cruise isn't best pleased and went off on another rant, and apparently several members of staff have now resigned.
Yeah, I noticed that last night, and I was wondering if it's something that had happened again. And I just think, what kind of workplace and working environment are you facilitating in circumstances like that? Like, undoubtedly, Tom Cruise is, he's the most powerful person in that workplace, and to behave like that, I think that's very problematic. And I think using the power that he has over pretty much everyone else that's there, the power imbalance is already huge. And to behave like that, he either thinks it's unacceptable, he either thinks it's acceptable or doesn't care. and I don't think either of those are really appropriate in a workplace.
Do the staff have any comeback? Sorry, Colin, go on.
I was just going to say he's quite clear in the rant that he is effectively trying to keep them in jobs, because if that production shuts down, he knows he'll be fine, but it will be them, and Jillian mentioned this power imbalance. It will be the people with less power that are immediately out of work and immediately struggling for money.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. Beck too, the union have picked up on this, and they say that the film crews have worked tirelessly to put in place the procedures to ensure that the film sets are COVID secure. And after a very difficult year for freelancers working in the industry, the last thing the crews deserve is a multi-millionaire Hollywood star screaming abuse and threatening their jobs. This whole thing just, to me, screams like a man who's got far too much on his shoulders and is having a bit of a breakdown. Jillian.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true, and I think, for me, it would be interesting if it was a woman who'd behaved in this manner, because I think people look at Tom Cruise and they think, I think it's unlikely to upset his reputation, but I think if a female film star had acted in this manner, I think the coverage would be very different. I think you're right, the coverage is around, pretty split in terms of he should have done what he did or it was very bad behaviour, and I think it's an interesting analysis to have that, if it had been a female acting in that way, I don't think it would have been quite as